Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, Gary.
All set?
Set.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about the 70s in one regard. In another regard, it kind of reminds me that I'm 70 years old. So it's a little different. Judd wants us to talk about growing up in Hantsport. And some might say in my household I haven't fully grown up yet, but the challenge tonight will be twofold. One, trying to keep within the time slot of 5 to 8 minutes. I know everyone's got a lot to say. And also trying to keep on track in terms of all the random memories that are bouncing around in my head from growing up in this town. With that in mind, I've broken it down into three kind of themes. I was trying to find a way to organize myself. So my three themes are the river, the downtown, which I'll explain a little bit why we called it downtown, and the school. So that's how I'm going to try to keep myself on track a little bit. The river, in my mind, has always been synonymous with this town, of course. And as in my early childhood, before the 70s, just to set the scene, we used to sneak over the bank behind the Mrs. Wells Creaser property and get down to that river to fish tommy cod and eels without our parents finding out we were down there. When the 70s came along, we got a little older and we were allowed to go to the wharf, which was a big deal, to fish off the wharf. You couldn't actually butt in and take any of the old guys' spots. You had to kind of have the worst spot on the wharf. But you were there nonetheless catching dogfish, which are actually mud sharks. And we caught skate. For some reason we called them barn door skate. I'm not sure why, but that's what we called them. And eel and bass and some stripers and of course tommy cod. And if you were really unlucky, you would catch in that river, not so much today, but there's a lot of fish back then in that river, you would catch a scalpin. And if anybody's ever seen one, they're all head, they're all teeth with the body about that long. That's the most ugly thing you would ever want to have on your. And I remember I caught one and didn't really want to touch it. So I beat it off on the wharf. I beat it off with whipping it down like that till it finally came off the fishing line because it's such an ugly fish. Anyway, so that was a little bit about it. But the real prize down there for me was the Otis Whack. And I grew up on Moses Hill. 3 doors down was Captain Clayton, who was the captain of the Otis Whack. Gary Clayton, his son, and I were quite good chums as we were growing up. And when the tide was right, we could hook off school and go out on the Otis Whack. And you would go out off of Delhaven and sit and wait for a gypsum boat, which was the time when you could fish halibut. And we had hand line off of that boat. And of course, the other big feature about being on the Otis Whack back then was food was fantastic. It was just fantastic. And so we got well fed, well looked after, and really enjoyed those trips. But the river's a dangerous place, and it has spit me back twice. I'm never going to give it the third time. But I'll tell you one story about the river before we move on to downtown. So Gary, you heard about Gary Clayton, and when Gary was a young man, he had his own boat. It was a little wooden lake boat with a little cabin on it. And one day, in our infinite wisdom, we decided we would take that boat down. Myself, Gary, and Craig Kilgore, who's here somewhere tonight. And we decided we would go down the river ourselves, anchor off at Delhaven, spend the night, catch lots of fish, and come home. Again, we're back in the 70s. There's no such thing as going on your weather app to see what's going to happen. And you can imagine what did happen is we hit a fairly rough storm that night. The tug was already out there waiting for a gypsum boat, so it was watching our mast light all night. We were drifting, dragging our anchor, scared to death where we're going to end up. But what was even more concerning and scary was when the anchor caught and it wouldn't drag anymore, and then the boat would bow and go under. Took out the windows in the front of his little cabin. Anyway, long story short, we lived through it. We woke up in the morning, looked straight up at Cape Longington. The river was like a mill pond again. We fired up the engine and headed for Hantsport. Happy to survive until we hit a sandbar in the middle of that river that are apt to be there, right off of what we call Boot Island. Spun the boat sideways, laid it up on the side, waiting for the tide to push us. So as the tide was pushing us, we were moving, thinking it was going to roll us instead of float us, but eventually it did float us. And we got home, much to the chagrin of some people that were waiting for us on the shoreline. We made it back, and there was another time that I won't belabor you with the story, but there was another trip across that river in a canoe. And I found out that two 16-year-olds in a canoe cannot paddle that tide. But that's for another day. Anyway, we had a lot of spectators on the wharf watching us out there. Downtown, we called it downtown because I always lived on a hill in this town. I always lived on Holmes's Hill or Maple Avenue. And so to us, it was downtown. That's where we congregated. In the 70s, I was 15, 16 years old. And if you can remember the zinc property and the drugstore and the bars, the pipe bar fence, that was our congregation spot. You know, it was that corner right there with Aldershots, Zincs, Disco, I think it was called, the Food Mart, and the Fina Garage. So you could sit on those pipe bars, sit on the top, put your feet on the bottom. That's where you hung out at night as part of your social thing. At Don's Restaurant, we hung out there a lot. The Fina Garage, which was a place where we hatched a lot of great plans on a Friday night, and one time involved Lloyd Anderson. I decided on a whim, let's go to Fenway Park. So away we went at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to Fenway Park. Another night was, we decided we'd go to the manganese mines. Whitey McCully had an old Willys Jeep. We'll go for the night, have a good time, maybe have a couple pops. 5 of us crammed in that thing. We got out there, we thought, we can go fishing. We can turn the headlights on the lake and go fishing. Except for the brakes were not really perfect in that thing and they were probably wet. When we turned the lights on the lake, we went down the bank, luckily caught the side of the dam before we went in about 80 feet of water. But there's where the Jeep was, so our one-night trip turned into a 2-night trip. And Lloyd Sterrick and I believe excavation guy.
Murray?
No, it'll come to me anyway. They came out the next day and hauled us in.
John Tracy?
No. Yes, thank you, Jake Miner. Yeah, so they hauled us out of there. Of course, we had, the Esso station was another hangout spot. These were places we just hung out. I mean, that's what you did back then. You didn't have any, if you had a TV, if you were lucky to have one, it had 2 or 3 stations on it and that was it. So every night you were down there as quick as you could get there. Community center, at that age, in the early 70s for my group, the swimming pool was a draw. The pines were a draw for another reason. Nice little short trees, very densely planted.
They were just tall enough.
Good place to have,
Just
never
tall
mind.
enough.
The outdoor rink, of course, we used to start skating in November. Climate change is pretty real. I mean, we used to go over there and skate in November, skate night after night to the music. It was just amazing. It was amazing, really. I don't know if some of you remember Gil Hazlitt's vending machines. It was another place where we hung out, of course, so things like that. So it was a time of fast cars back then. I always remember 2 guys had the exact same car. Steve Patterson and Bill Allen had 1972 Dodge Chargers, identical. So they're always getting in trouble or confusing our town police department as to who did what, because they were amazing that way. And I can tell you that back then, illegal possession charge was $13.50. And you got to stand before the Justice of the Peace, Joe McGinn, who knew you, your parents, and everybody else. So you didn't get too far with any kind of secrecy in this town. The school, I mean, we were really lucky. We had a school that went from primary to 11 back then, and we had fairly, for us at that time, for Judd and I went primary to 11 together. We roomed together at Acadia. Matter of fact, one of us almost got us kicked out of the dorm the first weekend we moved in. It wasn't me. I wasn't even there. But that's another story. Yeah, P to 11. So a strong focus on academics back then. Not that there isn't now, but I always felt that we had very dedicated staff in that school, and they taught us with every intention of educating us. You know, there was never any question about that. You know, we had home ec, we had woodworking, we had drafting, we had driver ed, we had our own car. Good God, school had its car for driver ed. Can you imagine today? Yep. So I graduated in June of 1971. And just to be sure, I graduated again in June 1972. But back then, you could go to Acadia from grade 11. And I unwisely thought that was a good plan. So I went back to Hantsport to get better marks to get into Acadia. Judd went to grade 12. So for 1 year, we actually played basketball against each other instead of with each other. And we still kicked the butt every time.
Not true.
But I will remember that story too, because there was 3 of us that decided to go back because we wanted to play basketball. And we wanted to get better marks to go to university. So on the first day of school in 1971-72, in walks Gary Johnston, Kevin Frazier, and Cam Porter. And I can still see Mr. Clark looking at us and go, no. But there was no recourse for him. We were allowed to go back, so we did, and we spent our second year there. So that was all that was about. And we used to write provincial exams. You know, sitting in that gym. Was it 3 grades, like 9, 10, 11? All of us in there at the same time. Anyway, it was scary as hell. I remember that part of that.
Did you get better mark?
I did. Thanks, Brady. I went to Acadia for a while. So to close, you know, I would say in my mind, Hantsport has always been a town that punched way above its weight. I've always felt that. I can't explain it, but maybe it's a legacy of William Hall or the shipbuilders or our industry, the Shamrock baseball, whatever it is, but we've always felt that we could punch above our weight, and most times we did as a small town. We always did. There's the actress Andy McDowell says there's a comfortable feeling in small towns. That was her quote that I stole from the internet. In my personal experience, I moved 10 times since I've lived in Hantsport. I've been here my whole life, and all 10 times I never made it out of town.
Wow.
And today, from my front lawn, I could hit probably 3 of those houses with a good 9-iron shot. So it's been a very rewarding for me. I've always felt lucky to stay in a small town and grow up in a small town, and never felt cheated by that one bit. And so I would say that I've found it quite comfortable. Thank you.
Take my papers.
Yeah.
My papers. Are you sure they're all yours? They're all mine. Where's my list? Who's next? They're all his. You want my glasses too? Cathy. Cathy. Girl, guy, girl. Again, Cathy, for some people that may not know you, if you would just give a short introduction.
I have
Cathy?
one piece of paper.
That's all right. Cathy grew up on Maple Avenue, across the street from our family. Thanks, Cathy.
And I graduated once with Gary.
I tried to spread
I
it
only
around.
graduated once. This was kind of cool when Judd sent me the asked to do this, and I will tell you who I am. We're going through this because, contrary to what some people think, I was not born here. I was born in a place that doesn't exist. I was born in Newcastle, New Brunswick, which is now Miramichi City. And we came here in the spring of 1956. I was 8 months old. And I have been in Hantsport my whole life, except for the 70s. I graduated in 72 from Hantsport. I graduated from 73 in Windsor. I went to Mount A for 2 years. I came home and I went to work at the Bank of Nova Scotia, New Minas, and I lived in all those places. I moved back to Hantsport in 1983, but I am from Hantsport. As Judd said, we lived across the street from the Porters. There were no secrets on Maple Avenue. You could see in everybody's front windows. So I was going through what I could speak about Hantsport. And as I say, the 70s was my ending going into marriage, and a lot of us that are speaking here tonight got our spouses in Hantsport, or Hantsporter, as Ian's going to correct me. So that was kind of cool. But I went back to, and then I had to do some math to figure it out, but hopefully it will work. Oh, Jed's got a co-editor of the yearbook. That's cool. I was. I'm going to talk about horses in Hantsport, because for most of my teen life, I had a horse in Hantsport. My dad bought me a horse when I was 13, I think. And we bought it from a man, or he wasn't a man, he's only 2 years older than I am, Kevin Weil from Falmouth. And we paid $300 for a horse and all the gear. So I got bridles and saddles and the whole bit. It was a white horse, and I rode it for a few years, and then I was ready for something else. So we traded the white horse for a brown horse with Merle Mailman from Avonport. And I rode the white horse to Avonport, to Stewie McIntosh's, and in that barn there was a standardbred pacer, which I don't know if you guys know what a pacer is, but normally they're not ridden, and when they are ridden, they go like this. And I got on that horse that hadn't been out of that barn for a long time and rode it to Hantsport. No, it rode me. It never stopped until I got to Hantsport. But the good thing about small town is my first horse I kept at Roy Sterrett's on the corner of Prince Street and Oak Street. And the barn is still there. The little green building is where my horse was. I walked into their kitchen to get my water. Roy Sterrett was really good, and that's where I could say that the village of horse people helped to bring me up on horses. And those people were Roy Sterrett, Wilf Trefry, Mert Tracy, Jetney King, and Ron McGinnis. They were all old men when I was having horses. They were all younger than I am right now. So I had my standard bred for a few years, and one January 1st, my father and all the other children, brothers and sisters, are up at my grandfather's mountain home in Westchester, Cumberland County, and I'm out on my horse where Jubilee Lodge is right now. It was a field, and we're running through there, and my horse shattered its front leg all the way up. Never broke stride, but shattered the leg. So the vet came, nothing we could do with the horse. Because he was a racehorse, and because racehorses are fed to be racers, they're not properly fed, so the bone would not heal. So when I went to get my instructor's course and my lifeguard course in March of that year, my mother had the horse put down. And if my mother was here today, she would tell you she has never seen me more upset than when she put my horse down. Probably she would have seen it with her death, but that was probably one of the saddest days of my life. I had great friends through the horses. Linda Bourne from William Street who taught us to ride, sort of, in her backyard. Yeah. Tammy Demmings to me, it would be Demings now, but Tammy Demmings to me. Tammy McCullen, who kept her horse at Lawson Welch's on School Street. Heather Cox, whose horse was at their house out at 5 Points, and Debbie Connor's on the Bog Road. We all had our horses, other than, well, everybody had their horses at home except Tammy and I, and we had to walk to feed ours. So I used to have to walk down to Prince Street twice a day to feed the horse. I then kept it over at George Tracy's, where the independent store is now. There was a stable there, that's where the horse that broke its leg was. And they had a pony there who, if anybody knows ponies, they'll know the rest of the story, because everybody knows ponies are really mean and really stubborn. So that was part of my job there, is to ride that, because Susan couldn't ride, it was too loud. And then I moved the horse on to Rand Street, where Huey Hiltz lives. And if you don't know where Huey Hiltz lives, it would be across from the big, I can see it directly from my house, where I live now up on Faulkner Drive. So he would be halfway up, 2 doors down from Yaton's, coming back toward Hantsport. And I used to walk up there twice a day to feed the horse. And that meant on Christmas Day, nobody got to open gifts until I went to the horse. Talking about my horse people, Mert Tracy and Ron McGinnis went by the end of Maple Avenue at just about the same time every day. Ron going to the reservoir and Mert going to the cows. If I timed it right, I always got to drive. And it was always warm in winter. One day I went into, and at Huey Hiltz's, his wife was with him, I again had to go into their house to get my water to feed the horse. But one day I went in and I'm feeding the horse and I put my hand in the bucket to scoop, and there's something moving in my barrel. So up the ladder I went, and, it's a rat. What does one do with a rat in your feed barrel when you're all by yourself? So I went down to the end of the driveway and waited for Ron to come back from the reservoir and flagged him down and said, I have a big problem, there's a rat up here. Ron takes the gun off the back window of the truck, comes into the barn, climbs the little ladder to the haymow and goes, picks it up with their tail, throws it out on the manure pile. Only rat I ever saw until the last few years when I fed pigs and chickens over at the John McCully Harvie farm. But it was a big rat, and he couldn't get out because he'd eaten too much. So when I lost the horse, I then was going off to university. So we had a few breaks there. And when I came back from university and was working in New Minas, Guy Boyd had done a whole lot of work for my dad. He was a construction person for Windsor. I believe he actually built the apartment house. And he had a son, Philip. All these people are gone. They were old. They're all gone. Philip had a Western barrel and pole horse named Blaze, who I had followed for years. And he offered me that horse. And he said, she's, a great mare breeder. So I did. I took her over to Kevin Wiles and bred to one of his stallions. Learned how to line breed a horse. Never going to do that again. But I ended up with a mare that was pregnant. So was I. So the colt was born in May. Morgan was born in October. And 11 days after that colt was born, the mare died. So I now have an orphan foal and a pregnant belly. And the colt thought that it was a dog because Doug and Nancy Irvin's dog lived in the barn with the horse. And that dog actually took the afterbirth home to Nancy. She was not impressed, and all I could say was, Nancy, it was on my manure pile. I can't control what he did. So anyway, I have this 11-day-old mare, or a foal. The good thing about it, and this is where Mert Tracy came back to my help with formula, because what am I going to feed this thing? Because my mare, she had foundered and she was down, the colt learned to draw, because he nursed her. She was down and he was nursing up. When I went out with the very first bucket, he put his nose in that bucket and he emptied it. And I never had to look back as far as feeding. Skip ahead 2 years, the colt's now ready to be green broken. I better put one more story in between those. My brother Michael used to walk the colt. And he actually walked the colt down to Abbott Street every day because there was a girl down there. And he courted her with my horse. But it was a cute little pony. So anyway, 2 years later, the horse needs to be green broke, which is ready to get riding. So I went back to Kevin, he took the horse. I'm pregnant again. So horse comes back and I'm like, I never had this horse and I can ride it again. Christopher is so allergic to horses that I cannot be with the horse and with the baby. They wouldn't let me give Christopher up, so I had to give the horse up. So I gave my horse away. So for the initial investment of $300 by my dad, I had 4 horses. Dad did all of the vet bills, thank you very much. And that colt had, he walked on his fetlocks, which means he didn't walk up, he was walking. So he had special shoes, they were about this big flat, and they put them on to make him walk. And then he had an umbilical hernia. So he had to go up to Cornwallis Vets in New Minas, Kentville. And my dad got Guy Boyd's truck that has the square back on it, whatever they're called. And we put the colt in there, and we put my mother in there, because I'm working. And they're taking the colt up to have an umbilical hernia removed. They get out to 5 Points to the garage. Dad has to put gas in the truck. And he stops and he goes, "You all right in there, bud?" And whoever was pumping the gas went, "Who's in there?" He goes, "My wife." Anyway, long story short, if that colt was here today, he'd be 40 years old. I have never seen him since the day he left my house. So that's what you can do in Hantsport with $300 and lots of people to help you. Jetney King was my blacksmith, and he was a blacksmith. I could ride my horse out to the end of the Lockerville Road, and he had his forge there, and he hot shoot my horse. And I learned so much through all of these things, and how much these men loved horses, and how much these men were never going to let a horse get ahead of them, because I saw some pretty good words said. But I wouldn't give that up for the world. As Gary says, small town, where can you go? Everybody knew my horse. In fact, the first horse I had used to jump the fence about every other day, and used to go to Eldridge's on the Lockerville Road, and they would just call me and say, "Your horse is out here." And I'd walk out and put a saddle on her, or put a bridle on her. I didn't have to have a saddle, and just ride her back home. But she'd do it again 2 nights later. But she never went any further than that. We never know why she went to Eldridge's, but that's where she went. So anyway, that's my story about Hantsport. Other than I have 2 little things I want to stick in that came to my mind right when Judd asked me to do this. The first one was standing on the corner of School Street and Main Street at 12 o'clock, waiting for all the dads to go home for lunch. And it was load and go. They would pull in, load the car, and go out. Pull in, load the car, and go out. Never my dad. Beth's dad walked. But it was so cool because we all walked to school. We all had to go home for lunch. And that's how we got home, was with somebody else's dad. And if I said, "Got it," don't you say a word, Beth. Got it. Does anybody know the answer?
No.
You heard the story.
The first, you gave us the answer. First part.
Drop it.
Dropped it.
Drop it.
Dropped it, got it.
Well, I used to got it, drop it, because we had to get it before we could drop it.
Okay, works either way.
Anyway, that was the other thing I remember. And I talked to somebody, and they said, "Well, no, it was a metal merry-go-round, and you couldn't lay on it because it had the little place that you had everybody sit. When you made it go fast, you couldn't hang on." And the third one and the fourth one are together would be the bandstand at July 1st, or the bandstand at the community center, but used at July 1st, and the French fry booth, because I don't think anybody can forget the French fry booth, or who worked it at July 1st at Hantsport. And saying that, July 1st was a great thing. For Hantsport, I actually organized July 1st, I think 5 years. And there was never any problem getting anybody to do anything. And this year, on June 30th, I was coming from somewhere in Canada, and to drive by the community center, and there's nobody there, and it's June 30th. I'm not building a float. There's nobody working. But July 1st still happens.
Yeah.
So it's great. Anyway, that's my not living in Hantsport in the 70s story.
Thank you, Beth. Yes. Here, I didn't have anything under your name as far as activities at school. Cathy was co-editor of the yearbook and chief printer, by the way.
That was used to be a staffer.
Our next presenter was, the year that she graduated, was the chief printer of the yearbook, Beth.
Sniffed way too much of a standard food.
Come on up, please. You think you'll need the mic? No? No.
What do you think?
I'm trying to be polite. Another Maple Avenue girl.
Yeah, that's right.
There were 53 of us.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right. Okay, everybody had all these wonderful stories and everything, and I just didn't know what Judd wanted, but I love Gary said about the hangouts. But we used to hang out at the phone booth too.
That's right.
Yeah, I thought about that. I put that in here that we would call the phone booth and people and say, well, who's downtown? And where are they? Well, they're at the pipes, sitting on the pipes. Okay, and then there was no social media in those days. You know, that's what we did. But and 73 was a year of Watergate and you know, all the turbulence in the U.S. and we just lived this carefree, wonderful life without a care in the world. And you know, part of the 70s was just this camaraderie. Everyone just loved each other and we did things together. We had class trips to Neptune, sporting events. Our parents drove us to sporting events. If there was a basketball game in Hants North, say, okay, whose parents are driving? There wasn't like, oh, we got to get a bus. You know, there's just, oh, well, I can take 3 in my car and I can take 4 in my car. Trudy Murray likes to tell the story of her mother driving to a basketball game and sitting and knitting, and afterwards saying, well, who won? Because she'd be knitting. I don't know what's going on there, you know, which was kind of good. But we were very fortunate, the class of 73, that we were selected. There was a program at the time called Young Voyageurs. It was, I'll just read the little blurb because I still have my songbook and I am going to sing a number of selections from it. This program was funded by the Government of Canada through the Department of the Secretary of State and the governments of 10 provinces and 2 territories, which uses the experience of travel to develop an awareness of the special character and responsibilities of Canadian citizenship. The Young Voyageurs program assists groups of people of high school age from different regional and cultural backgrounds to exchange visits to each other's homes and communities. And we were selected. Hantsport, Nova Scotia, grade 11, 73, was selected. This is our songbook. Yep, there we are. I have that with me. I have the same picture. And Kim even has her tote bag.
I didn't bring it,
I know, and I should have told you last night to bring it, but anyway, it was a wonderful time. We armed with our matching bright yellow tote bags and government issued songbooks. We boarded the train in Halifax or Montreal, and we went to Ottawa. We were there for Canada Day, which was pretty exciting. We went to Quebec City, and our destination was La Sarre, Quebec. Now, La Sarre is a town in northwestern Quebec, and it is the most populous town and the seat of the Abitibi West Regional County Municipality. So it's located on a tributary of Lake Abitibi, so it's pretty far north, and nobody spoke English. Nobody, except us, except the 19 of us. We spoke English, but I was fortunate. The home I was in, the dad was the manager of the Caisse Populaire, which is like our credit unions, and he spoke a little English, and he had researched Hantsport, so he was quizzing me about the gypsum company and the paper mill and the sawmill. I don't know, there's no internet, so I don't know how he got his information, but it was kind of cool that I actually had an English speaker in the home where I was. Now, we did not reciprocate with that family. The way this program worked is we went there and then we received another group of kids, and they were from Picton, Ontario. They weren't quite as thrilled with Hantsport as we were with going to Lassar, Quebec. Anyway, I don't need to say any more about that. Anyway, 70s, I had brought some pictures that I have this one for sure, and I have other ones. I don't know if Judd's going to want them, but I did bring them anyway, and if anybody wants to look at it. Nice, just one little fact about 1973, that was the first cell phone call was made on the streets of New York. His invention, Martin Cooper, brick-side device, brick size, and it was available to the public. So we're a pretty special year. We were on the ground floor of cell phones. So anyway, just generally, I guess I can't speak on too many other things because everybody's pretty much touched it about hanging out, and the church was a big part of our life here, as well as the school, and it didn't matter if I was going to BYF, which was Baptist Youth Fellowship. There was junior BYF, senior BYF. There were people from all religions came to the group. It didn't matter. You didn't have to be a Baptist to go to BYF, and I have lots of those pictures too of us all being together with that. I had a little camera. A lot of kids didn't, but I had a camera from my uncle in New York, and I have tons of pictures. And I had a great time going through them, but I certainly couldn't bring them all. So anyway, gentler times prevailed. We looked after each other. We didn't have social media. The social media was the phone booth here in town, and I don't think kids today would be satisfied with what we had, but I sure am. I left here in '75. I moved to Dartmouth for 3 years and then to Moncton for almost 30. And after my mom died, I said, enough's enough, I'm coming home. And so I came home in 2002. So anyway, there wasn't anything for sale at the time, so I live in Falmouth, not too far. I can almost fit there. So anyway, it's great to do this, and I'm anxious to hear everybody else's comments. So I'm not going to do the 20-minute talk. That's it. And if anyone wants any songs, just feel free to come. We'll all break into something. Un Canadian. Okay?
Thank you, Beth. Just as a little break before, who's going to come next? Trina, who's going to be next? I did bring over the decade of the Hantsport yearbooks that are over on the table there. Please feel free. I have some of the pictures I'm putting up as sort of the years. I should be pointing out where the people are, but Beth, you can see yourself in that picture.
I can. I have my yearbook with me too.
But I just wanted a couple of things to go through very quickly. For the 1970 yearbook, we didn't have anyone here from 1970. But it was dedicated to Frank Newcomb, who was the chief of police at one time in Hantsport, and then a long time custodian at the Hantsport School. In 1970 as well, they had a special insert or supplement, they called it, and it was called Excerpts from the Advance. The Advance was one of the papers that was published in Hantsport in the early 1900s. They also did a section on the history of sports 1900 and 1950, which is an interesting read, and that is actually up on our website if you want to have a look at that. In 1971, the yearbook was dedicated to Moss Smith, World War I and World War II veteran. Used to sharpen her skates for the outdoor rink. 1972, the yearbook was dedicated to Michael McKillop. How many people had Michael McKillop? Two teachers came over from Ireland, Northern Ireland, and taught at Hantsport School.
And he was IRA.
Yeah.
Mike McCully was
Yeah. 1973, there was no dedication, but as Beth said, there was the Young Voyager program. And also, did you folks take a trip to Halifax as well, class trip?
Well, we did Neptune and different things.
Trina, in 1974, the dedications were Dorothy Olwellwood and Mr. Mohit Saha Ray. They also did a Young Voyager trip, and They did a section in the yearbook History of Hantsport Memorial Community Center. So again, it's interesting reading. It's there. Trina,
Yes.
do you want to come forward and tell us a few tales, please? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Not from Maple Avenue. One of the few.
I'm from the low town, and,
Tell that one about the Dudleys.
no, that was your story. So, remember I said I didn't have anything to do with it. I was born in Wolfville, but grew up in Hantsport all my life on Porter's Avenue, and best street in the world to grow up on because it bordered the community center. So we could walk from our house and be on the ball fields, be at the pool, be at the skating rink. The hill that was created because of the pool became the coasting center. If you weren't big enough to go up to Maple Avenue before that was developed. We coasted there, we skied there. I can't remember how many movies my father made of us coasting and skiing, and then he'd run the camera backwards and we'd be going up the hill and back and forth. But to have that facility on your doorstep was just the best thing in the world. And to grow up in Hantsport, I think, was the best thing in the world. I moved from here in 1982 after my husband got a job in Sheldon County, but in the 29 years we were away, Hantsport was still home, it didn't matter. And lucky enough, the first year we were married, we lived in the caretaker's apartment at Churchill House. And it was just fabulous. Judd had his office downstairs. I used to go down and bug him on a regular basis. But for a very small rent, our duties were to make sure the gates were locked at night and the doors were shut after a meeting. And that was it. And we otherwise had the run of the place, a few parties. I had to get up into the Widow's Walk a few times, and loved the view from there. But yeah, the community center was everything to me, and I know everybody in my family worked there with the exception of Trudy. I think was the only one who never worked at the pool in all our years growing up. It was a great thing. So when we had the 50th anniversary, I'd always regretted not keeping one of the t-shirts or sweatshirts that we wore in the 70s from the pool. So I had some made up, and I managed to dig one up today before I came over. Gary mentioned the rink. Being able to go down there, Whitey McCullen, have the fire going, and the music playing, and we'd go so many times around, and they'd say switch, and we'd go back the other way, and to play hockey outside on that rink, and to watch the guys going around, skating, and you'd skate all year round, not all year round, but all winter, and never worried about the ice being gone, because it was just cold enough. And when you get old enough to be able to help shovel off the ice, or they had remember the snow plows that they had, they'd skate and
Wooden plows.
plow the wooden plows, and they felt like they weighed a ton.
They did.
Yeah, so they looked like they weighed a ton. Being able to shovel off the ice, and the winter carnival, and the snow sculptures, all lining the side of the rink, and the princess pageant, and everybody, every year it was something to look forward to, and the volunteers, July 1st. Cathy was talking about I think my favorite part of July 1st, other than the games of chance down below, was the canteen at the pool when they had steamed hot dogs and buns. And I always couldn't wait till I was big enough to work there so I could sell steamed hot dogs and buns. And now, I couldn't eat a steamed hot dog and bun. Because I don't like the buns mushy anymore. But that was a big part growing. We were so lucky to have that opportunity, and to everybody's parents pitched in and helped. You knew everybody who was working. There was no, you never had to worry, and people would come in and everyone would have a good time, and the parade was as big as, it seemed like it went on forever. All the apple blossom floats, the children's parade, I can remember, the McCullens putting several floats in the parade, and one year was the Beverly Hillbillies. Tammy was Ellie Mae. I was Granny. Dwayne was shoot.
Jethro.
No, Dwayne wasn't Jethro.
Jed?
Dwayne was Jed, and Kenny Sears was Jethro. And he had the everything on the back of his truck. Granny and I was in the rocking chair, and we did that. And another year we were dressed up. I want to say it was the Flintstones. But so much effort was put into all these things for the kids in town. It was just the best place. The tugboat, same thing. I got one time to go out on it, taking pictures for a magazine at that time, and got to go out and wait at Delhaven for the gypsum boat to come in, and being able to take pictures. I've still got pictures, and I wish I'd looked them up now. Whoever the engineer was, and going and take a picture of it. And that engine was just absolutely spotless. It just glowed. It was so clean. It's a wonder they didn't just cook the dinner on it.
Paul Davison?
Might have been. But what an experience to go down the river and experience, and our great grandfather ran tugboats in the 20s and 30s. So to be able to go out on the tugboat and experience kind of what he did was pretty cool. But I can't think of another place where we'd have that kind of opportunity. All the things we got to do growing up in town, fabulous. What else can I say? Great place. Thank you.
Thanks, Trina. And I should have said when I was up there with Trina was, for the yearbook, she was in charge of photography for Candid Shots in 1975. But just before we go to the next person, I just want to go through. We have, I did scan some of the yearbooks and try to get some of the graduating classes, but we were fortunate that some of the chaperones, that this is the class trip in 75 to Louisburg and Newfoundland. We don't have anyone, Trina, were you 75? Were you on this?
Yeah, no, I didn't go because I was working at the pool.
Oh, okay. So, but this is Sinclair Patterson. We got a bunch of stuff from his family after he passed.
I can tell you a little story about that.
Sure.
Though,
Yeah.
that Leah has told me.
Sure.
When they were in Newfoundland, and Mr. Clark and St. Clair were the chaperones, and St. Clair had been able to acquire a Newfoundland phone book somewhere along the line, and he was taking it home, and they were going on the ferry, and then you had to declare if you had any potatoes or anything like that, anything agricultural, you had to declare it. And so Mr. Clark was in the car ahead of St. Clair, and when you get up there, he told the fellow, he said, "Oh, we don't have anything," but he says, "Just ask the fellow behind me about his phone book." So when he got up there, the guy said, he said, "You got any agricultural products?" And he said, St. Clair said, no. And he said, "What about phone books?" And I guess the look on his face was I thought it was pretty funny. He squirmed for a minute and got back. Go ahead.
But so again, some of them are pretty grainy. That's Louisburg in the background. So there's Mr. Clark. I don't know if you can see my Mr. Clark and Sinclair with the hat on
And that
there.
one was still pretty early Louisburg too.
Yeah. Again, just Bruce Campbell with his tongue
Brucey
stuck out.
Campbell, yeah. Jeff Turner, Maureen McGinn.
Who that is laying down.
That's Janice Masters, I think.
Jill
Davidson. Crystal
Crystal.
Bissett.
Bruce again.
Bruce again, Jeff Turner.
Mike Wilcox, is he still in town?
Yes, he
Is he
is.
still in town? Jeff Turner, yeah. Still
Danny.
75. So I just wanted to throw these in just to sort of show you that we do have 75. These are also, no one's mentioned Apple Blossom, or somebody, I guess Apple Blossom floats. But so, Dandy Apple coming to Hantsport School,
Yeah.
do you remember?
Mm-hmm.
Mayor McCully, Cathy?
I remember him. Quite well, actually.
Not many kids, but who's that person right there? I could blow that up. That's going to be our next presenter, yeah. Dandy Apple. Anyway, just again, these were some Claire's pictures. Just go through 76 still. Newfoundland, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Anyway, probably too many. But again, so if anyone, I guess, if anyone does have any old pictures that if they can just bring them in, we'd be more than happy to scan them and give them back. But it makes a pretty good addition to our collections. This is 77, so just let me go back up here for a minute. Jennifer? Jennifer Harvie, I swear I'm not very good with married names. Jennifer, for her yearbook, she did grads and literary. Yeah, so Jennifer.
Thank you. So, nice to see everybody sitting there. You don't realize all these pretty faces are in front of you. I didn't make any really good notes, so hopefully I won't get too far off track, but I thought I would just talk about Hantsport and what happened in the course of a year in town. And that came to me because all of our family photos have recently come to me in my house, and sorting through them and what to keep and what to get rid of. But I realized in our family, we took the same pictures every year and every holiday and every birthday and all the events. And so I thought, well, you know what? From 70 till I went off to Acadia after graduating in 77, it did feel like there was a pattern. And again, a small town, everybody does the same things. Folks have touched on a lot of those areas that we met together, downtown, the rails, the pool, but it kind of, for us, I think the year always started in September. You went back to school, had to go to Stedman's to get your campfire notebook, and we went home for lunch, so we didn't need lunch pails, we didn't really need backpacks, but the school year would start, and in 1970, I was still in elementary school, and we would submit projects to the Hants County exhibition, and who remembers we got half a day off school to go to the exhibition. Who would imagine that? I would tell that to people in other provinces in a way, and I'd say we got time off school to go to the agricultural exhibition. But it was a big deal to see your project or a class project, to go see the animals, get your candy apples. So that was kind of fall activity. Sports were starting up. And then the next thing we knew, it was time for Christmas teas. And I think we referenced that most people had some affiliation with the church and intermingled. We all went to everybody's tea and rummage sale. So Christmas and Christmas concerts, church concerts, that was a big deal in town. And then I came across pictures of the store window displays that my mom put together for Harvie's store for several Christmases. One was a North Pole exhibit, one was the night before Christmas, and those were sort of mid-70s that she did those displays in the store window. But we also had the Christmas shopping party in town, and folks from Windsor would come, folks from other communities would come to Hantsport because the merchants did that Christmas shopping party. So that's kind of into that era. Then we're getting into January, February, Winter Carnival we've talked about already. And I brought along, Judd, I did bring some photos from our little Harvie album, if you want. Some of them are about that. But sometimes in that course of things just being the same every year, a new event would happen. So one of the pictures I came across in the album was 1970, and it's a picture of a big fire. And so I'm looking closer, and it was when there was a big fire in the apple bins that off of Tannery Road. And then I was thinking, oh yeah, we had that big gravel pit back there, and we all used to go down there and play. One year it flooded and we were out paddling in canoes out there because it was so full of water. But yeah, so a big fire. In 1971, before the internet, word went out, they're going to finish the causeway, and everybody rushed over, right? Do you remember? And we all drove over because they were going to put that last shovel. It was going to be all done. Well, of course it wasn't done, but that's how, you know, information would spread just from house to house. So big things going on, and let's all go see what it's going to be all about. So that was kind of something that I thought about. I'm glad that you talked about the French exchanges and those voyageur trips, and I think Hantsport and Horton, sometimes students would go on one or the other. But that really was something that was unique and wonderful in Canada at that time, and the fact that small schools and small communities were included in that exchange of students back and forth. And I think we used to call them French exchange, and who's on the French exchange this year. So that was a wonderful thing that came to our town and brought us out into the world. So we're up to winter, all right. So winter, you know, we're all playing our basketball games or volleyball, and we get into finals and competitions. And in '76, our senior boys team won the provincial championships in basketball for the B level or C level. I'm not sure what level the boys were playing in '76. B, there you go. B, right? And I just actually ran into to Bob and Darlene's suite, and Bob has connected with all the players from that team and hoping to have a reunion of that basketball team. So they, you know, we're big champions then. '77, we're diving team won provincials. I'm not sure when we won swimming provincials, but one year we did. Before that, yeah. So we've been a winning town as well. I think fairly important. We talked about July 1st. Maybe people don't talk about Apple Blossom Parade because all those floats and bands all used to come to Hantsport anyway. If you didn't make it to Apple Blossom, no worries. It was all going to be repeated for the Hantsport Parade. So summer was that. Summer was all of those activities, and then we're back to buying our campfire notebooks and back to school again. I'm sure there were other things I was thinking about talking about. The class trips was something that was wonderful, and we had teachers that would get us down to drama club, you know, drama festivals in the city, or teachers and parents usually, if we had just a history class trip out to the French Cross, and we were studying about the Acadians, or maybe a trip to Grand Pre. It was wonderful that the parents were so involved in taking us places, but the teachers that ever came to our school were just wonderful at making sure that we were exposed to the bigger, wider world. So I feel like really, really fortunate to have grown up here, to be part of, I guess, you know, in the town with the family running the store, got to know lots of people that way, kind of got a sense of being part of the community. And that's gonna maybe summarize my little memories of Hantsport.
Thanks, Jennifer. Now, also, Jennifer, you're gonna have to help me. Did Sinclair also go?
Yes. On our class trip, we went as well to Cape Breton in Newfoundland, and we, Trudy Murray was with the RCMP at that time, so we stopped and had a visit with Trudy. Yeah.
Okay, because again, I don't know if this is, I mean, this is a cargo ship, but Gary, are those rolls from?
That's liner board, yeah.
So I don't, maybe he was down doing something else, whatever, but I'm assuming this is Newfoundland. Maybe, again, I'm just guessing from Sinclair's pictures, but there are some of the students going up the gangplank to the, and there they are bundled up in the bay. Some people you might see there.
Oh, that's 77 class trip.
Oh, 77?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I mean,
Yeah, that's
Susan, Martha.
Susan McCarthy,
oh,
Larry Smith.
Yeah.
sorry, I skipped ahead. Sorry, my mistake. Martha again. Snow, wherever they went. Larry.
That's
Okay.
That's us.
77. Okay, just to try to catch up on, in 1975, the yearbook was dedicated to Alistair Clark. He didn't retire that year, did he, Brian?
I don't know.
Oh, what year did you?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. 1976, the yearbook was dedicated to Lorna McNeil and Peter Ferroda.
And also, they're in the one of the sections. They wrote up a history of Hantsport High School. Again, if you want to have a look at it, it's there. 1977 yearbook was dedicated to Ethel Young, Miss Young, and also in memoriam to Harold Burden, who was longtime chair of the school board and that passed away that year. I'll just say 1978 because we're coming to that. The yearbook was dedicated to Miss Ann Dexter. Class trip to the Magdalen Islands, etc., etc., etc. How many people can name all of their teachers from primary to 11?
Everybody should be able to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 because it takes the same.
Won't be able to find it. I'll find it and do it again later, but I sat in the car while I was waiting. I took my brother today to an eye appointment, and I was trying to think of the names of my teachers, so I didn't look through the yearbooks, but I think I have them all, and I'll go through that in a little bit to let you have a look at that. Is Doreen here? Doreen's not here, is she? Okay. Mr. Johnston.
Oh, you skipped 77?
Our first valedictorian for the class of 78, and also you candid shots for the yearbook. Peter did, according to the.
That was a big job.
We're going to take off his jacket. Big job.
I love to take pictures.
And I didn't bring your pictures. My apologies.
That's all right. I can make reference to it and everyone can use their imagination.
Thank you.
I'll try to paint a picture instead. Well, we were the largest graduating class of Hantsport School in 1978. No one's got that record but us. We had 35 in our class. There were 2 grade 11s. Mr. Stedman had 17 with 11 boys and 6 girls. And Mrs. Stevens had 18, 2 boys, me and Dean Marsters, and 16 girls. So there was a little bit of
Peter, you're right there. Just that's your
a little bit
class.
of
And there's Dean.
gender inequity there. And depending on who you talk to, that was a good thing or a bad thing. Me and Dean had it pretty good. But the reason for that was because it was who was taking French at grade 11. If you took French, you were in with Mrs. Stevens, and non-French students were with Mr. Stevens. And we kind of did that for a few years, and we came up with nicknames for each class. The French students were heroes, and the non-French students were sweathogs. And we kept those nicknames forever. And back in 2018, our 40th class reunion, we actually had nameplates made up, heroes and sweathogs. This isn't mine, because of sweathog, but this one's Steve Folkers. He died the year before, so I wore that reunion in his memory. We were really lucky to have the teachers we had at Hantsport School, and you know, if there's anyone here from the Hantsport Board of School Commissioners at the time, I'd like to thank you for your hiring practices, because we were incredibly fortunate with the staff that we had at Hantsport. They weren't just great teachers, they were also coaches for all the sports teams, and they were directors, and I say that because we had a lot of fun in junior high and high school putting on a school drama production every spring. And I was lucky to be in I think all of them. And I remember Mary Ellen Carpenter was a great director. She directed several of them. And I can remember Diana Purdy back in junior high. She'd be sitting in a chair, and all of a sudden we'd be in practice, she'd jump up, Peter, speak louder, dear. And she'd run towards the stage, and okay, and I can remember that to this day. And of course, co-workers. We liked the school so much, some of us, that we came back to teach. Myself and Renda Vandertorn in name 2. I spent 22 years at Hantsport before moving on to high school, and I know Renda spent longer time at Hantsport as a staff member. And we had the pleasure of working with some of our old teachers. Doug Irvin, Mary Ellen Carpenter, Casey Vandertorn, Jane Brent McKinnon were still on staff when we came back to Hantsport as young teachers. So that was kind of neat. And there were chaperones for our class trip. I had some pictures about technical difficulties. We can't see them tonight.
Me.
But, no, I wasn't on a single yoke yet. But we had, our chaperones were Al Clark, Joy Patterson, and Mrs. Stevens, and I can't think of her first name, she was a French teacher. We went to the Magnet Islands, and PEI, of course, you had to catch the ferry from Summerside. And we had a wonderful time. 18 of us went, and we had so much fun. A couple of things that stand out. I remember we were on the Magnet Islands on the beach, wherever, I don't know. And the day before, there was a big storm, and there's all these lobster traps washed up on the beach. So I saw this as an opportunity. And I remember going to these lobster traps, and I found some lobsters in them. I figured, well, no one's going to get these traps. I picked the lobsters up. There was a little movement in them, not a lot. So I managed to convince Al Clark would steam them up for supper. And I think me and Roy Sanford, the only two that ate any. Everyone else was afraid they weren't alive enough to eat, but they were good. And the other thing was, I think three or four boys went. We're all in the same tent. And every night, Royce's biggest kick was he would nudge Kenny out and say, "Hey, Kenny." And Kenny would turn around and say, "What?" And Royce had a little Kodak camera and he'd go, "Poof!" This flash would light up the tent, and poor old Kenny would be seeing yellow circles for the next half hour, and Royce would just be laughing. He thought that we caught on pretty quick on that. So there's lots of good memories of Hantsport School, and of course there's lots of great memories about Hantsport the town. And we were lucky growing up in Hantsport because it's always fun. It was always a safe town. You went everywhere on your bicycle. You know, started with a banana seat, Golden Bay. I graduated to a 10-speed that Robbie McKinnon put together at Kurt McKinnon's hardware store. I still own that bike. Has a leather seat. I'm told to throw it out every year, but I refuse to. And that took me to Windsor, to Canadian Tire, to buy fishing supplies in the spring, and wherever I had to go, because there was no car in our family for a long time. So you could drive anywhere on the bike back then and not have to worry about it so much. And we grew up in the time when mothers were calling you to get in at night and not trying to kick you out during the day. You know, usually when the street lights come on, get home. And every mother knew you. It didn't matter what you did. If someone saw you, they'd say, "I'm gonna call your mother." And sure enough, you get it when you get home. We spent our summers playing baseball, swimming at the pool, lining your towels up, hanging out at the playground, sleeping out at night. In the summer, we slept out a lot at night in the summer, and kind of became amateur botanists in the summer. We had to do some nighttime inspections of fruit trees and gardens, and so we were just making sure the crops were good. But
wasn't asleep up.
Cherry trees.
yeah, the cherry trees. I can tell you where there's some good Concord grapes in town. But winter time in Hantsport, to me, meant spending your time at the rink. And of course, that's the old rink where the Med-Stair ball field is now. At lunchtime, you ran home. The bell always went at 5 to 12, so you could beat the mill traffic, get your lunch in, and you tear off to the rink where either you played a little shinny, or if the ice was too soft, you played some boot hockey. So you heard the bell at 1:15. You had to get back because the last bell went at 1:30. And as soon as school was over, back to the rink. Get a little skate in, a little more hockey or shinny. Get home, get some supper, try to get some homework in there somewhere. And then back at night. And if you're lucky, you could scrape the ice. Well, you weren't lucky. You wanted to scrape the ice because then you got in for skating at free that night. And yes, those plows were made of 2-inch hardwood made at Minus Basin, where everything's overkill when it's made, with a great big piece of angle iron on the bottom. And sometimes it took 2 people to push them. But if you scrape the ice, you got on for skating at night for free. And we can all remember skating at the old rink and listen to the old scratched up LPs crackling on the loudspeaker, and that would only be interrupted by a few times of Wimpy or Winston getting on there and tap, 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 tap. Mike Turner, off the ice. You'd almost hear that every night. But he did manage to get some skating in, but Mike wouldn't leave the girls alone. He would take their hats and scarves and knocking people over. And hockey was always a lot of fun too. We played a lot of hockey, a lot of nights it was so cold and your feet would hurt so much walking home and try to get to sleep. And there were like, I think there were 6 or 8 300-watt incandescent bulbs on posts, and there would never be all of them on the same time. They'd be there, one get knocked out with a puck, it'd take a week or two to get it replaced, and you'd spend some nights looking for pucks more than handling a puck because the boards were so short. They go into the snow, and all you get was trying to find this little slot where the puck was, and you could never find a puck. You always hoped the Newcomb boys would come out because they had all the pucks in town. They would be the first ones at the rink in the spring when the snow was melting, and they'd get all the pucks. And we never played with the puck that was official weight because they carved so much rubber out putting their initials in there that the puck was probably only about a third of the way to show it. There's always a big FN, Frank Newcomb, on the puck. And the downtown kids like us, we went to Ron McGinnis to get your skates sharpened. I think it was 50 cents. And the skates back then are nothing like the skates you are today. You cannot bend the back of a skate today, it's so stiff. But the older skates had thinner material in them. And Ron didn't help the support piece on your skates because he had this homemade skate sled in his basement made with a couple C-clamps. And he would take your skate and he would take the back of it and he would just bend it over double to get it in this C-clamp. And I would just cringe because the back of my skate was just getting bent over so he'd get it in there. But luckily I had good ankles. Some of the guys playing hockey, they could put blades on their ankles and skated that way, I think. But anyways, it was funny. He always was there. And I remember his wife, I can't think of his name.
Hold
Oh, she would be in there with her apron on the kitchen, and I'd come in with my 50 cents, and Ron would be on the couch, so he'd get up, take me to the basement, sharpen the skates, and off we go to the rink. Winter Carnival was big, as was mentioned earlier, and I was fortunate to be crowned in 1977 with me and Becky Hoover, and that took me around the world, all the things that come with that. I still have a lovely gold braided necklace and that sash somewhere. Now there was another picture that I'd sent Judd where all the ladies in waiting were in behind, and I was hoping Jill was going to be here because I was going to earn some points. Because I was going to say, now she may have been my carnival queen, but the real queen is over there with the ladies in waiting.
We're taping this, Peter. So
And I was going to say I married her 7 years later, and I just celebrated 40 years of marriage. But no, well, maybe I'll show her that. So that was always a big event in the wintertime. I love the wintertime with all that went on. And Winston, Wimpy, getting him out of the apartment up in the Churchill house to come down and open the rink. If you didn't think it was cold enough, we'd go on the ice, check it with her skates and her boots. But it was a lot of fun, you know. It was good, safe fun. And, you know, I kind of feel bad for some kids today that they're not outside as much as we were. We basically, you know, lived outside until it was mealtime and time to go to bed. There's some other pictures of royalty. Well, I just, you know, I wanted to keep it short because I know Judd has us on a time watch here. So, you know, I just want to impart a couple of stories that I remembered and just end with saying, you know, we're fortunate to live in this town. That's why I'm not living anywhere else. You know, I had to move away for 3 years as a young kid to, you know, as our father was chasing some education, but we came back and stayed. And Jill says to anyone who comes in and talks to us, friends of ours from out of town, one of the things she always says is, Peter will never leave this town. And she's right. So there's no reason to. That's it.
thank you, Peter. Skate sharpening, interesting. Just before and Doreen's not here, still didn't come in. Okay, so Randy, you're going to be up next. Dwight, welcome.
Thank you.
Dwight Smith. I'm just a quick story while Dwight's there. I graduated in '71, one and only time.
But Gary mentioned about going to Fina's, Whitey's Fina Garage, and for whatever reason this day, somebody asked me to go down in the pit underneath, which was just greasy and oily and whatever to help hold something or put a light, whatever. So Judd was down there, and somebody said, "Do you know what time it is?" And so I was late for the afternoon. So I run from Whitey's to the school, in through the front door. The tile floors had just been cleaned that week, I think, whatever. And I'm walking along towards the right-hand side if you go to the high school, and I hear Mr. Clark say, "Porter!" And I'm like, "Oh," and I do a pivot. I'm a basketball player, so I do a pivot. And I look back, and here are my foot marks on this. And Dwight's dad came around the corner at that time, and Mr. Clark said, "Go down and see Mr. Smith or Mr. Patterson and get something to clean that up." He said, "You're cleaning it up, me." I said, "Okay, boom, boom." So Eric said, "Come on, come on, come on." So down we go, and he gets a bucket with some stuff, whatever, and we come back up, and I'm on my hands and knees starting to scrub, whatever, and Eric's looking around, and Mr. Clark finally goes in, and he said, "Judd, you go up to class, I'll take care of it." So kudos to your dad. Your dad helped me out that day. Just quickly before Randy comes up, teachers. Before I do that, I went to 3 different schools, 3 different buildings for my education in Hantsport. How many did more than 3? 2, Cathy?
We were the first class in 61, the class of 73.
Gary and I, primary in the old Legion Hall.
Right, that's why I did the Legion.
Then grade 1, we went to the old school, which is now the apartment building across from the current school. And in 1961, when the new school opened, we started in grade 2, so 3 schools. But teachers, for Gary and I all the way through, Miss Rand in primary, Mrs. Dexter, Miss Blackburn, Miss Wellwood, Miss Young, Mrs. Sanford, Mrs. Card. So that's the grade 6. We were so lucky, grade 7 and grade 8, we had Mr. Foote for homeroom 2 years in a row. Then grade 9, we had Mr. Muse, came in, French teacher. He was only there for a couple of years, I think. Grade 10 was Mr. Ray, and then grade 11 was Miss Whitman. Who can forget Miss Whitman? Randy, you want to come up?
They were the same for the next year. All those teachers were my teachers as well.
Were they? Yeah.
Except we were a split class from 2 to 6, so some of them were.
Sorry, Randy, who are you? For who you don't know? Yes.
Randy Carey. I just got an email a couple days ago there from Judd, and I appreciate it. So I just wrote a few things down here quickly and about my 70s experience here in the town of Hantsport. When I first received the email to participate in this event, I thought, I'm very busy. I just got home from Alberta last week and back to work in Kempville now because of the shortage of crane operators. Just thank them, Randy, for the invite, have a cold beer by the river and call it a night. Then out of nowhere, my wonderful older sister Renda, whom I still stay in contact with, although she passed, slapped me side the head and yelled, "Get in there and smarten up." So here I am. I'm so fortunate, as I always remind everyone in my travels, how lucky I was to grow up in the small town of Hantsport, especially in the 70s. We had so many things to do: hockey, basketball, baseball, swimming, ground hockey at the fire hall. I know Donnie McNeil would always love my phone calls saying we just broke another door window with a tennis ball, and but he always would come down and they'd get it fixed and he'd let us keep playing there. So swim team, that's kind of repetitive here, folks, but we were all in the 70s. Swim team was awesome. Traveling the province in the old school bus with no highway back then to represent our town very proudly, bringing home several provincial ribbons and trophies in diving and swimming, some of which I still have and treasure. Our outdoor rink, what can I say? Carrying our hockey gear to school so we could go play hockey, after free skating, clear the ice, and our beautiful winter carnivals, snow sculpture contests, which I remember Lloyd Anderson won one year actually with the lobster, I think it was. The King and Queens competition, bonfires are embedded in my memory forever. And now our school. What a wonderful family we had. Teachers and students were together all the time. Miss Purdy's drama class, and Miss Carpenter's, as Peter spoke of earlier, was so cool. Putting on the plays, we'd have people, I think there were some people from CBC actually come in and did our makeup for us there one year when we were doing the final year there, so that was pretty neat. We'd go home and we were told we ate supper because we had the glued on beards and mustaches to be very careful when we had supper. Or seeing Dwight here tonight, so we started a radio station. It was called Hantsport High School Happy Half Hour. So Lloyd Smith would take it. They did it with I think two or three schools. Kemple was one, and we bid on to it. Bob Tracy was originally with us, Doug Newcomb, and Dwight Smith and I. So that was pretty cool. We pre-recorded on a Wednesday or Thursday, I think it was, Dwight, and then so if we were on our way to a basketball game on a Saturday, it would air on Saturday, so we'd be going to the basketball games, listening to our own radio channel like it was on for a half hour, right? So it was pretty neat time in our lives. And Lloyd Smith, thank him very much. He did a lot for us. It was pretty cool. Volleyball, our new trampoline. Remember getting that one. Floor hockey, soccer, and basketball. Yes, basketball. For all my and many other my friends' high school years, we lived, breathed, ate, and drank the sport of basketball. My brother-in-law, Casey, he kind of favored the sport. It became very obvious. So, as mentioned before too, we are presently organizing the 50th anniversary of our NSSAF Provincial Championship teams, and I'm so looking forward to this in May. I want to mention Mr. Wallace's Railroad Club. I just got a couple notes here too. I'd like to thank him for his time he spent with us in that many hours, and Mr. Stedman's Canoe Club. I could go on forever about the 70s. Barney Langel's Pool Hall, July 1st celebrations, which I will never forget, were the main event in Hantsport. We've all spoke of it. I remember setting up the old booths, helping Dad when he was president of the community center with the old pulp blankets from the mill. And the mill used to send up Bobby Levy with the tractor, and all the crew would come up, and we'd set all these booths up, your crown and anchor and everything. And Renda and I used to run the turtle races. They're probably against the rules nowadays, but we used to have turtle races, and you'd win 3 chocolate bars if the turtle went out through your number. So that was pretty cool. I'd like to thank the town of Hantsport, Andrea Mounts, who was our swim team coach, Dwayne McCullen, Terry Skipper, Casey Vanatorn, all of my school teachers and volunteers for creating an environment that any person would envy to be around in the 70s. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, just coming from Alberta and working in Kentville. Just a couple comments. Did anyone else want to say a few words? Anyone want to come up from the 70s and say something? No? No takers? Just a couple things. I wanted to be 8:30. We're pretty close. Peter, you mentioned the drama club or whatever. I remember the variety shows that we had. And I remember the skit that you and Steve, Peter would be the ventriloquist, and Peter would sit on his knee. This was in the school gym up on the stage, and the place was packed. And Peter would drag this trunk across the stage, and there'd be to a chair, and then he'd open the trunk and he'd pull Steve out of the trunk and put him on his knee and have his hand behind him, and then they would start this conversation. It was just dynamic, very dynamic. I just also mentioned about having an hour and a half lunchtime. At least in our house, you would rush home for lunch, and then you'd go out to play sports, play whatever. And at 1 o'clock, when the Baptist church bells went, you know that it was time to start heading to school. So that's how that was. We didn't have a clock, didn't have a watch, whatever, but we knew as soon as the chimes going off, then we had to head to school. And certainly no buses, as everyone was saying here about parents being involved in transportation to and from, and for all kinds of sports activities as well.
it was pretty interesting. Number have mentioned about Coach Vandertoorn and the Hawks. Gary and I think, were lucky enough when Casey first started. The Hantsport team never had a team name for the basketball team, and how we came up with Hawks, or he came up with Hawks, I don't know. But Gary will remember, Casey, if you're going to have a new team name, you had to have new uniforms. So, of course, go to the school board and say, can we have some money for uniforms? And they say, yeah, here's this little piddly amount of money that you can have. So Casey came up with this great idea that you guys can go out and pick apples. So, okay, that's fine and dandy. So I forget where we went, whatever. Casey forgot to tell us that we were ground picking. We weren't picking apples from the tree, so all these rotten apples, and you're on your hands and knees and whatever. Anyway, but this was part of the uniform, the warm-up uniform, the first ones that we ever had in 1969, I think it was the year for that. And also, excuse me, mentioned about the provincial championship basketball teams, Randy. I remember in the summertime, in my grade 11 year, Casey giving us the key to the gym, no adult supervision, so that we could go in and play, and we then started a mini basketball program so that the younger kids could come in and play. And you can imagine giving a 16-year-old the key to the school. That's the kind of town that we had. Just a couple of quick memories. Miss Card in grade 6, it was, and this is imprinted in my brain. Grade 6, so you're 1 year going through the blue doors to grade 7. The first day, she brought out these brand new geography books. And she was showing us how to, the book, you open it up in the center, and then you open it up a quarter of the way so the binding wouldn't break or whatever you did it a certain way. And she said, by no means do you ever mark in that book. It's a brand new book. It goes back, a new student next year, whatever. And then she brought out these blue labels that were sticky that you had to lick and put on the front inside cover. And it said, this book belongs to or is used by Judd Porter. So everyone was doing this, whatever, and writing the name. And all of a sudden, I heard everyone in the class heard her say, "What are you doing?" And she went over to Larry Morse. Beth? And if you remember the single desks that we had, the slide in, whatever, she reached down and picked Larry up, and the desk came right up with it. And she just, I thought I told you not to, and the desk was going down off his body. Down, I thought I told you not to mark that in that book. Needless to say, that was the first day, so everyone was very good behavior for the first 3 weeks at least. It was just crazy. And finally, I do remember this parent-teacher night. No one mentioned parent-teacher night, I don't think, but it was night when, and I don't know those that remember Miss Black. It was the first year that she came to Hantsport. I can't remember the year. But my mom went down, and they lined up to meet this new teacher. And my mom says, I'm Donnie Porter's mother, and Donnie is my second oldest brother. And Miss Black, and my mother told me this story. She said, so nice to meet you, to-do. And then my mom said, and also I'm Cameron and Judd's mother. And she said, Miss Black just looked at her and she just said, you poor woman. And my mother was taken a little aback. But anyway, I guess that tells you the story from my mom. Anyway, just, I guess in closing, if no one has anything else to say, again, if anyone has any pictures, scrapbooks, whatever that they could bring in that we could digitize, I'd always like to add to the collection. And Marg, I didn't forget, as far as VHS tapes, we now have software that goes to the computer where we can digitize VHS tapes. Marg was in the other day and just digitized one of a sort of a roam around the community center house, which was probably done in the 90s maybe. But also we had the VHS tape of the opening of the new machine in 1997, minus Basin. And that is, we've uploaded that to our YouTube channel, and if you go to our website under the icon of videos, you'll see that video there as well. So if anyone has any July 1st or anything, those type of things, if you can bring them in, or we can certainly digitize, certainly give you a copy of the digital item as well. But again, it helps to build up our digital collection, so we'd certainly appreciate if you do that. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to say? Again, Dwight.
Would you like to sing Maple Leaf Forever like you did in the music festival?
No, I didn't say that. I'd say I didn't want to bring that up, Cathy, but me always winning in the music festival. Miss
I just
Chang,
remember
no
the
one,
Maple
no
Leaf
one,
Forever.
do you remember Miss Chang? Yeah.
That's too old.
Yeah. Dwight, I don't know how you heard, whatever, but thanks for coming in. Oh, appreciate it.
I was walking for a little while and ran into Peter, and Cathy, Carey messaged me.
See? Small community.
Well, Randy's gonna be, I said, I just talked to Peter about it. He said, well, you should go up there.
In from Alberta? Are you in Alberta?
I officially moved home Sunday.
Oh, okay. Welcome home. And for everyone, just in closing, let's remember that we'll have the Remembrance Day service on the 11th at the school, and our next meeting will be the 4th Wednesday of November. Mark, I guess we have maybe some drinks and some cookies there. Certainly willing to have a look at the yearbooks and chat afterwards. 5 minutes late. Thanks very much, everyone. Appreciate it.